Recently, I traveled to the UK, and while I was there, I did a ton of day trips. I did a day trip to Cardiff, I went to Manchester, and I really only spent one day in Edinburgh. I also popped over to another town in Scotland. So I'm spending one day in each of these places, and while there, I was just on foot and using a tiny bit of transit. Basically, I popped in on the train and I looked around, saw what I could see, and then I left. Now, I don't think this is the best way to travel. You don't really get to engage with the city as much, but you get to see some interesting things, and then you move on to the next place. But while I was doing this traveling, it got me thinking, could I do this in my hometown of Calgary, Canada? Would I be able to, or would somebody else be able to just show up one day and just see what they can see? So I decided to put it to the test. I did a one-day speed run of my hometown, Calgary, Canada, to see if without a car I could see much of the city, if any at all. Let's start at the Calgary Zoo. I started here because it opens at 9 a.m. To get there, I took the Max Yellow bus from Southwest Calgary, where I live, hopped on the Blue Line LRT, and there I was. Having a C-train station at the zoo is very convenient. First stop at the zoo is the penguin plunge. Here, you not only see the animals, but you also get to see how their needs are met. I love windows like this, giving you a look into how things work behind the scenes. You'll remember a similar window can be found at the Royal Tyrrell Museum, which I still hold that we should have a train there. I think it would be a lot of fun. Now, I'm skipping the Canadian wilds, which are largely under construction. This has long been a skippable section for me because I live in Canada, which means I can just see these animals. Wait. Okay, before I show you this clip, I need to tell you, do not do what these people are doing. Give animals their space, be respectful, and don't put yourself in danger. But this is an interesting clip of some of my ancestors. Now, December 1st, the Canadian wilds will reopen as Wild Canada, welcoming the polar bears, Siku and Baffin. So I'm sure we'll be back to see those soon enough. I also usually skip the prehistoric park. There's some fun stuff in there, especially for kids, but the Royal Tyrrell Museum isn't far, which makes this feel a little less unique. Using these wayfinding signs, we can see Destination Africa is next. There are some interesting animals in here, including meerkats, which are so cute. Hippos and giraffes too, lions, zebras, lemurs, also all very cute. And a seating area for events and school groups. Next is the African rainforest. This exhibit encourages you to engage your senses. And here's a baby gorilla. He's about 10 months old and is also very cute. We round out this area with some interesting birds and a quote from anthropologist and literal feminist icon, Margaret Mead. As a side note, Margaret Mead's sister Elizabeth Mead was at one point married to William Steig. Now you might be wondering, who is William Steig and why should I care? Well, William Steig wrote Shrek, as in the book from which the film was adapted. It's not important information, but it is kind of interesting, right? Anyways, at the zoo, I also saw some stunning gardens, which if you're here at the right time of year, you can see filled with butterflies. Of course, I also saw lizards, monkeys, and a beautiful horsey out for a stroll. I mean, look at that majestic steed. Can't you imagine him riding into battle? And then we wrapped up with a visit to a couple cats. Now, I moved super fast through the zoo. I only spent just over an hour there. I didn't really read any plaques, and I'd also been there. I was there mostly to be like, hey, check out this cool thing you can see well in my city. So since I only used 1 out of my 8 hours as a visitor to this beautiful city, I decided that instead of walking back to the train, which I was going to take to the East Village, I'm actually going to walk through Inglewood to get there. Which worked out really well because I saw this awesome bike parking, I saw a guy fishing, I saw people walking on this nice wide path, I got a view of the city skyline, and then I walked through Inglewood. Although the sidewalk was a little narrow, it's nice to see some of the parking here being turned into people spaces, and I grabbed some food and a drink while I charged my phone. And I enjoyed seeing this. Boxes like these go a long way to improving a space. They're simple solutions, they're cheap to do, and easy to implement. It wasn't on my list, but as I was walking by, I found Fort Calgary, which I hadn't been to in probably a decade. So I stopped in, which was fantastic. It's a small museum, but I learned a lot about the local area. And since I'm not a fast reader, I found these little audio tour QR codes very convenient to my visit. And of course, I went into the barracks and saw an art gallery, which is absolutely worth visiting. Now it's time for the Riverwalk. I'm starting from Fort Calgary at the confluence of the Elbow and Bow Rivers and heading to the East Village. It was really nice to see space for pedestrians and cyclists, though this line in the grass tells me this path may not be quite wide enough for the amount of traffic it sees. This is on a Sunday morning, and you can see people getting around with a variety of modes, including this layback motorized trike and these one-wheels, which I don't really understand how people ride these things. They kind of terrify me, but maybe I should give it a try. You'll also find posts with some rules, wayfinding, and a help post too. So now we've made it to the East Village. It's nice to see some pedestrian-focused signage and some interesting artwork. Next stop is Studio Bell. Performances here echo through the museum as you explore. Here you can learn about the history of Canadian music, get an overview of the science of sound, and visit the Canadian Music Hall of Fame. There's lots to see, but kind of the one thing that I thought was the coolest on this visit was these solar drones. It's an electro-acoustic audio installation by Patrick Merrill, which is very cool. I'm not exactly sure what that means, but basically something, the sun hits the panels and then vibrates down or something, and there's electricity, and then bzzz, and then it hums. That's the best explanation I can give for this. Otherwise, just pause the video and read this placard. And look, a window into a workshop, my favorite thing. And a Nickelback exhibit, since they're new to the Hall of Fame. After Studio Bell, I had to take a break from walking, so I stopped in at the Central Library, and I also had to charge my phone. All this video recording really takes a toll. This building is amazing, with spaces for kids, youth, students, community groups, and more. You can learn about the history of the region, look at maps, watch trains, or enjoy a coffee. And there's an auditorium. If you enjoy the content I create on this channel, then you'll definitely enjoy the Placemaker series by the Calgary Municipal Land Corporation, which hosted its last event here. Although this building is amazing, the people and the organization that make it work are the real stars. The Calgary Public Library is a great place for people of all ages and interests. With dozens of locations around the city, you're sure to find one near you, where you can borrow books using a free library card. You'll also have access to courses and a bunch of other stuff. I'm a huge fan. Next is Stephen Avenue, which we'll get to by walking through the municipal building. It's closed on Sundays, but if you're wondering, this is where your voice can be heard. Some things to see here include the temporary Indian Residential School Memorial, temporary because they're working on a permanent memorial. You can see City Hall, Olympic Plaza, the Jack Singer, statues of the famous five who fought for women's rights in Canada. The Arts Commons is here, and the Glenbow Museum will return after construction. You'll also catch a look at the Calgary Tower, which you can go up, but I did not. Stephen Ave is Calgary's pedestrianized street, which is really sad to think that this is really it as far as fully pedestrianized streets go, but it's something. This is so sad. We're trying. There are some good things on the horizon, but for now, this is what we got. There are a lot of restaurants and shopping, which leads us to our next destination, the Core Shopping Center. Now, I'm not huge into malls, but the Core hosts one of the most interesting city parks, the Devonian Gardens. It's an indoor park, which is pretty cool. So I stopped here for some New York fries, and then I got to use this very cool waste system. I have taken so many clips of different garbage cans, waste bins, and other receptacles for our refuse. I don't know. I've taken so many pictures or videos of this stuff. I'm going to, at some point, make a full video just talking about the ones I like, and probably one talking about waste management in cities in general. Next, I wanted to walk through the Plus 15, which is a series of second-floor bridges or skywalks connecting buildings around downtown Calgary. There's this new map too, which is way easier to understand than the old one. But these doors weren't working, so I gave up and walked outside to the Centennial Parkade. You might be wondering why I'm visiting a parkade when this is an urbanist channel. Aren't I supposed to be comically anti-car? Well, no, but also in the walls of this parkade you can find a bunch of cows. Now, not live cows, these are like artistic cows, like these ones. Cool, right? These used to be scattered around downtown Calgary, and now they're here. To wrap up my speed run of the city, I hopped back on the bus and visited my favorite place, Heritage Park. At this point, my phone was going to die and it was very hot, so this is mostly footage I got on other visits. But I took the train around the park, I grabbed a root beer float, and took the trolley back to the bus. And that's basically it. But if you visit, you should definitely see more, including the SS Moy. You should see the rides, you should see the First Nations encampment, and of course the famous Five House as well, among like a lot of other things. Now, I would have taken the Max Teal to Around the Bend for some dinner, but they're closed on Sundays, so I wrapped up the day there and headed home. I was actually really surprised how much I was able to see without a car, and comfortably too. If I had had more energy and was into nightlife stuff, I probably would have gone down to 17th Ave for the night. I also missed a lot of other things on this trip. Not far from where I was is Prince's Island Park, Kensington, and other cool Calgary things. You'll also find other things here, like our new soccer team, the Cavalry. I recently attended one of their games, and it was actually a ton of fun. I'd never been to a soccer game before. The grounds where they play, Spruce Meadows, were also stunning. It was nice to leave the stands and then enjoy some nature with some patios outside some cafes, a gift shop, and a bunch of other things going on around the grounds. It really turned the game into a whole event rather than just showing up at a sports game and leaving. Sadly, it's not very accessible for anyone just visiting the city, although I did talk to some people who rode their bicycles there. But transit accessibility, it has not. If you visit Calgary, of course you'll want to visit the Royal Tyrrell Museum, but you'll need a car to do that. But maybe we should have a train to get there. Just an idea, one that I actually think we should take seriously, but I couch it in this, oh, it's just an idea so that I don't get attacked and my feelings hurt. At least Banff has transit access, but should 100% have a train. Either way, you can't really get to know a city in one day, but I am happy to report that I was able to see a lot of my city, and I'm glad I was. It was kind of a fun experiment. To wrap up the video, I want to go back to that Margaret Mead quote we saw at the zoo. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has.